After the modern IMSA race at Watkins Glen we broadcasted just 1 week ago, RaceSpot Primetime hops in a time machine and goes back to 1989 for some classic IMSA action. 56 laps, 200 kilometers of the Mid-Ohio sports car course is next on RaceSpotTV and iRacing Live.
Hi guys, I'm Scott Speed, driver of this amazing Volkswagen Beetle GRC car. I got good news for the iRacing fam. We got this coming in. I'm currently working on it myself personally to make sure that it is as accurate as possible. With the addition of dirt and now this mean car, it is gonna be so fun. And it's gonna be available free to all the iRacing members. Personally, I can't wait to get out there and race you guys on it.
Hello and welcome back to RaceSpot Primetime, streaming live on iRacing Live, and it's going to be the Kamel GT series here from the Mid-Ohio sports car course. The weather is clear, 30 degrees in the air, 34 is the track temperature, winds coming in from the south at 15 kilometers per hour, and well, it's going to be a Jack Styles in the commentary booth with me, Connie Maddock, and well, it's going to be a 28 car field. It's going to be a fantastic racetrack.
It surely is. We've got a nice variety of cars here. Obviously 2 car classes in the Kamel GT series. The GTP with the Nissan GTP, which is the American version of Group C cars. Group C obviously you can still see today running in Classic Series. And the Audi 90 GTO, the four-wheel drive turbo beast that it is. And we're going to see some great racing cars today, Connery.
Yep, we really are, and a couple of drivers are still out on their final qualifying lap. One of those drivers is Fabian Lundgren, who's just coming out of the keyhole section of track down the back straight here at Mid-Ohio. Number 12 guy is just going to head himself down into the braking zone of the China Beach section, and this is a very, very tricky section, Jack, because of the amount of elevation changes that the car's experienced going through here. It can cause a little bit of instability.
Yeah, it can. Obviously, if anyone's familiar with Cadwell Park in the UK, we have a very similar thing there. But these Nissan cars, they have a lot of downforce, but a lot of power. They're very, very hard to control. None of the usual modern driving aids that we see today, like traction control and ABS. It's all down to the driver's right and left feet and how they handle the car. So you'll probably find that people are running very high downforce setups here to take as much speed through the corner as they can. But you're definitely going to see some slides, and I think we could probably see a couple of spins coming through in that very tight and twisty section.
Yep, I think we definitely will as Youngblood heads his way out of the final corner and comes across the line. Let's see if he improves his qualifying time, and he does not. In fact, that lap was invalid, so he must have gotten an off track somewhere else out on the circuit, as I think that's pretty much everyone except for Kederina Buefia here, number 17 car, heading himself down into the China Beach section, but I don't think he's going to have enough time to get this lap complete, so I think it's pretty safe to go to the grid. In the GTP category, it is Keith Ridgely taking the pole position. Then it's going to be Elena Lotto lining up next to him on the front row. Then it's Ojenjak in that P3 position. Then it's Xavier Sanchez lining himself out on the second row of the GTP field. Then it's going to be Baslov, Philip Lake lining up on the row behind. Then it's going to be Imaki, McLeod, Hill, Tezcan, Kicker, Ferreria, Hoffman, Youngblood, Tial, Hifi, and Kiovisodo is going to be the final car in your GTP field. Looking at your GTO field, however, it is Buafia currently taking pole position in that particular field. And it's Tenjerid, Michel de Jong, Andrew Bake, Dennis Savretic, Chad Peterson, David Barraclough, Andy Pez, Michael Kirsteiner, Tom Orr, and then it's going to be George Gruber taking the final position on the grid there. And I do apologize to everyone for my terrible pronunciation of those names, as the cars actually get lined up just about 3/4 of the way through the lap right here, so not going to be too long until we get started, Jack.
No, it's not. Very short pace lap here at Mid-Ohio, so we're going to be racing very, very soon as they start on their warm-up lap.
Yeah, we're just waiting for a couple of drivers, namely at the front of your GTO field. You'll have a minimum of 40 seconds before we get started here. And one big factor during the course of this race, because the race is so long, it's 200 kilometers, those Nissans will be coming up on a lot of Audi traffic, Jack.
They are. They estimate these Nissans are going to be lapping the Audis every about 6-7 laps, so we're going to see a lot of traffic today. Traffic is going to be a big part of this race, and obviously traffic could be where it makes or breaks people's races. Some people might be better in clean air, some people might be better getting past the Audis through the twisty bits, but obviously we know these Nissans are high downforce, we know these Nissans can carry lots of speed through the corners, so it's going to be interesting to see how they deal with the Audi through the tight and twisty section. But the Audi are going to have good traction off the corners, four-wheel drive. Obviously Audi coming out of rallying to enter into the IMSA series and develop this Audi 90 back in the late 80s. So they've got all the ready technology from the four-wheel drives, and as we just see everyone else starting off on their pace lap.
Yeah, the roof pace car just pulls away and leaves the field around for just a couple of corners before we get this race started. Of course, the field are going to split themselves up into their constituent classes. The Audi pole position, Buefa is just going to split themselves up from the GTP field as they're heading their way through the final couple of corners. Now, field is going to be under the control of Keith Ritchie, and he goes straight away, gets a huge jump over the rest of the field. We're going to go racing here at Mid-Ohio. Field seems pretty okay in the GTP field coming through the first couple of corners. The GTOs are getting their start now as your pole position comes across the line right now, all single file already. There was a little bit of side-by-side battling between the likes of David Barraclough and Andy Pears coming down into the first corner, but they get themselves in line for a very, very clean start, Jack.
Yeah, they do. Very clean start from these drivers. Obviously, they know it's a long race. 56 laps here at Mid-Ohio, 200 kilometers, obviously in preparation for the 500 kilometers of Road America we have here on the iRacing servers in August, utilising these Kamel GT cars, as you just see them coming through China Beach and into the S's for the first time. Tapani Linuato in second, and Keith Ritchie leading the field in your GTP cars.
Yeah, very, very, very clean start indeed, as your drivers are mostly single file all throughout your field right now as they're coming towards the middle sector right now, going into the last third of the lap. There's quite a gaggle of cars in your GTP field. This is for P number 12. Pedro Ferreira is being chased down by the likes of Fabian Youngblood, who's already gained at least one position on the start. Then there's John Keefe as well, heading their way into the final couple of corners. Some drivers take some different lines for you, as you see the number 24 machine just going way out wide before the penultimate corner, trying to get a bare exit coming down the main straight, but he doesn't get the run that he needs to make a move. Just looking back towards your GTO field. In fact, your leader has broken away already. He's broken that 1 second gap to Tenjerid right there in that number 6 machine, and he is currently being chased down by Savaretic and Andrew Bake. That is a very close battle for P number 2, 3, and 4, as that gap already at the front of your GTO field is at 2 seconds. As here comes the move down the inside at the keyhole for Andrew Bake in that number 18 machine. He's going to make it side by side, coming through there, coming out onto the exit, onto the back straight to get pretty equal runs there. As actually a better shift from Andrew Bake. Maybe Savaretic just messed that one up a little bit, gave the run to Andrew Bake, and now he's going to take that position just before they come into the braking zone for China Beach.
Yeah, nice pass there by Andrew Bake. He is now up into third in class, up one position from the start. But looks like Michel de Jong in the number 15 car has had a bit of a problem. He's already down 6 positions. Maybe had a spin coming through that. He had a very slow first lap by the looks of it, so I I think he's just lost a bit of time there, probably had a bit of a spin on the second lap and just lost a bit of time. But at the moment, the rest of the field looks pretty spread out. Obviously, the lead at the front for Richie is 1.4 seconds over Tapani Linueto in that #1 car. It should be noted that Tapani Linueto is the only pro driver here in this race. He's driving that #1 GTP Mercedes liveried car, so he's currently sitting in second, about 1.2 seconds behind Keith Ritchie.
Meanwhile, just after we cut away from that battle, Savaretic actually had a try and getting the pass back onto Andrew Bate, but that was unsuccessful coming into Thunder Valley as they head their way through the first turn right now. And it's been very, very quiet out there on track so far. One major battle that we've had so far, but there's still a train of cars from P3 in your GTP field that could get very interesting if this goes on much longer. Maybe I have to wonder how much longer until they start fighting. Something that's getting very, very close on track right now is the battle between Xavier Sanchez and Bas Slob. They did a relatively similar lap times last time by, but Bas Slob is catching little by little as the laps take over. And this could be an interesting fight between Bas Slob and our resident streamer, shall we say, Xavier Sanchez.
Yeah, Bas Slob we know is fast. We've seen him in the Proto GT series on RaceSpotTV in the past, so we know he's fast, we know he can get the job done. So Xavier Sanchez obviously also streaming this race. He's currently sat in 4th, Bas Slob in 5th, but Bas Slob looks like he wants to get past Xavier for 4th.
You're definitely looking to be able to do that as we actually look back to your GTO field. In fact, there's #6 machine in trouble right now over Tangerine right now. It's very, very slow on the straight. That was actually your P2 in your GTO field. Very, very slow coming out the final corner. Did he have a slowdown penalty coming into the latter end of the lap? He had a little bit of trouble on the exit coming into the 3rd to last corner and then coming into the carousel at the end of the lap. But I don't see where he might have gotten the slowdown penalty because of that. Either way, he's down quite a few positions, Jack.
Yeah, he is. That's unfortunate for him, and I think he's just lost out some time there for Over Trenegard. So I maybe expect it coming through turn 1, turn 2, although I'm not really sure. So he's dropped down into 5th in class, back behind this gaggle, which is currently led by Andrew Baker.
Yep, and joining into this what has now become a 4-car chain with Chandri's mistake is actually a car off ahead. That is Savaretic going for a trip through the gravel right there. He was embroiled in with a battle with the rest of this train, and I think he just overshot his braking. Actually, he had the trouble coming out of the right-hand kink there, ran a little bit too wide, and the car just broke away from underneath him, using that that Audi traction to get himself out of the gravel trap, shall we say.
Yeah, that's a bit unfortunate for him, as we just see everyone keeping very clean coming across to finish the 4th lap of this race. Now onto lap 5, but the Nissan leaders are starting to catch up with the back end of the GTO field. Obviously, we see the leader now coming out of the last corner, the back end of the GTO field, Tom Orr in the #28 car, now coming into the 1st corner, so has not taken them long to complete the 6 laps needed to catch the back of the field. So we're now getting to see the fun of watching cars in traffic and just see how this race may change over time.
Yeah, exactly, and I'll tell you why that was so quick, because at least in qualifying it was around about 10 seconds the difference between your 2 pole position runners in your GTP field and your GTO field. So that is an absolutely huge difference between the 2 classes on this track, and Keith Ritchie now has to be thinking about the traffic that is ahead of him. He'll be catching in the not too distant future. Tom Orr is going to be the first driver that he has to negotiate, and then there's a gaggle of cars. There's 3 cars, Mish Young, George Guber, and Michael Kirsteiner, and there's also going to be Barack Lopez and Savaretic as well that he has to deal with, and he negotiates the first bit of lap traffic just fine coming into the Thunder Valley section. Let's see if the rest of the field follows suit. Yeah,
you never know. He's got a 5-car train he's got to get past.
That's Tom Orr off. Yep, just as he saw the GTP car in his rearview mirrors, he decided to take a little bit of an off-track excursion, shall we say, coming towards the last few couple of corners of the lap. And, well, it's one thing to get out of the way of traffic, and I think that was a little bit too overzealous.
Yeah, that surely was. I mean, obviously, it can be distracting having faster cars come up in your mirror. I've made that mistake plenty of times, so unlucky there for Tom. He's dropped a long way behind now, behind the field. He is 20 seconds now behind the next car. Michael Grusteiner in the number 27 Audi, as he just got off at turn 1 again, nearly clips one of the GTP cars. Very lucky not to avoid that, so he's obviously a bit of a novice in traffic, but the GTP seems to be doing very well to get around him.
Yeah, speaking of traffic though, your P1 and P2 in your GTP field are currently negotiating a whole bunch of GTO traffic right now. And Keith Ritchie's going to put his car down the inside of Michel de Jong right there. And look at how much time your race leader has lost, because Tepani Lignoletto is right there and ready to take that P1 away from Keith Ritchie. If he makes any mistake during the traffic right here, and maybe Lignoletto can use the traffic as a pick to try and get past, but the traffic isn't falling his way at this moment in time. But he's close and he's ready and there to capitalize it if anything goes wrong.
Yeah, he is, and that's the best place for him to be. Just wait for there to be a mistake, wait for there to be an accident if there will be one. Although I trust Keith Ritchie and his driving skill that he won't actually cause an accident, as we just see them go up the inside of a GTO coming into turn 1 to start lap number 8 of this motor race. And these two are separated by not even a second, less than a second, about 7.5 tenths at the moment, which is the closest it's been all race so far. So traffic definitely playing into Tepani Lignoletto's hands, but he's got to get past Keith Ritchie, and getting past them in traffic is going to be hard. And as soon as they exit the traffic in probably 2 laps time, Keith Ritchie is just going to be able to drive away and keep that same pace that he had at the start of this race.
Yeah, you can see that gap extend already as soon as they get into clear air. But battle for P number 3 in your GTP field. This is Ozin Jack versus Xavier Sanchez heading down onto the brakes into the China Beach section. A little bit of a crossover move for Xavier Sanchez fails though, and Sanchez has to be careful of behind right now because Baslov is there and ready to capitalize on any mistake he makes. But there's a little bit of traffic ahead that's causing a bit of a nuisance to Ozin Jack right now. That is Dennis Savaretic in that Audi 90, just putting his car in all the wrong places, shall we say, for the GTP cars at the moment. Ozin Jack manages to find his way around, and so does Xavier Sanchez and Baslov as well, coming towards the latter end of the lap. So all those drivers well negotiated with that traffic.
Yeah, they're doing very well in traffic at the moment. This is brilliant racing that we're seeing from them. As Tepani Lignoletto and Keith Ritchie are 2 leaders in the GTP field. They've stretched out a 5-second gap over the 3rd, 4th and 5th place cars, and they've navigated all but 1 of the GTO cars now. The only one left is the number 17 car of Buafé, which is your leader, and he has led from the start, from pole, and his lead is currently 7 seconds over Andrew Bakay in 2nd.
Yeah, that is a very, very impressive drive so far from the number 17 driver, Buafé, getting that 7-second gap in what is 8 laps for the Audis at this moment is a very, very impressive feat. And now he just has to not get in the way of your GTP leaders, and then he'll be well on his way, as Ozin Jack and Sanchez are still going at it for P number 3 in your GTP field. They're having much more of trouble with traffic than Keith Ritchie and Lignoletto were having. That is keeping this battle very, very close, but still no change for position just yet, as Baslov is having a horrible, horrible time. All of this traffic is just backing him off the likes of Xavier Sanchez, and now he's got Philip Lake all over his tail.
Yeah, he has, and Philip Lake looked very good for a pass at the inside there, although he's just been held up by a bit of traffic.
Oh, crash behind Philip Lake around, tagged by a GTO driver right there. As they were trying to find their way around, Baslov managed to get his way around fine, but the traction just broke in that Audi 90 under the braking for the left-hand kink. Coming up the hill there, and it just tagged Philip Lake. Nothing Philip Lake could have done right there, and that is a very, very unfortunate way to go out with this race, as we see a replay.
Yeah, that is, and obviously just a tiny love tap there from the number 26 of Chad Peterson, and Philip Lake is round in the number 13 car. So he's got a bit of rear wing damage. He's back going again, I believe. No, he's in the bits. He's pitted, obviously, to get the damage repaired. So that's his chances of winning this race over, which is a bit of a shame, but that's obviously a racing incident. Can't do anything about that. The traction just broke on the number 26 car. And maybe a bit of inexperience in traffic, I'm not sure. But Keith Ritchie still continues to lead this race by around 8 tenths over Tepani Lignoletto.
Yeah, very busy in terms of traffic. Around about P number 13 in your GTP field. This is Fabian Youngbluff just getting around some traffic coming down into the China Beach section. But the GTP cars behind, the likes of John Keefe and Ferrari and Teal as well. They're having a huge amount of trouble with the traffic at the moment. There's a little bit of contact right there between David Barraclough and John Keith. Luckily, that damage is going to be so superficial for both cars, but that was almost a very, very scary moment, just like the one we saw just a couple of moments ago.
Yeah, and these cars, obviously, we know they've got high downforce, we know they can take a lot of grip through the corners, but as soon as those tyres lose grip, you've got no chance here. The walls are very close in, apart from a few areas, but they're very close to the circuit, and you are going to have a very interesting time if you get tapped. David Barraclough's got a bit of damage on the right-hand side, probably from that tap from the GTP car, but he's comfortably sitting here at the moment in 6th place in class, up 1 position from where he started.
Yep, he is, as we're on to what is going to be at lap 11 for your GTP field, and it's going to be lap 10 for your GTO field at this moment in time. In terms of the battle for the race leader at the top of your GTP field, though, it was around about 1 second was the gap last time by between Richley and Lignoletto. So Lignoleto's just dropping off a little bit here. He has no traffic to help him. It seems like Lignoleto's much better in traffic than Keith Ritchie, but as soon as they get into some clear air, Ritchie is able to stretch his legs. Yeah,
he is, and I think he's probably got a better pace in clean air. Maybe Tapani Lignoletto is a bit more comfortable in traffic, can push a bit harder. Or the fact that Keith Ritchie just had a bit of bad luck with traffic and was managed to close the gap.
Yeah, meanwhile, let's do some RaceSpotTV fan immersion on board with your GTP race leader. This is Keith Ritchie, and turn up that turbo. Sound of that Nissan Turbo is a very wonderful thing. The sound of the turbos on both cars here today sound absolutely amazing, as Keith Ritchie just still tries to stretch that gap over to Tapani Lignoletto. In fact, Lignoletto was faster by a couple of tenths of a second last time by, brings that gap down to around about 7/10 of a second on track at this moment in time. The other battles that are going on in your GTP field, a little bit of a train for P number 9. This is John Hill, Marco Kicker, Jan Hoffman, Fabian Youngblood, all embroiled in this battle. They just negotiated your current GTO leader, who is going to be their traffic. They're in some clear air right now, and it looks like no one's going to be close enough to make a move coming down into the China Beach section, as this 4-car train has split up into 2 pairs of 2 right now as they head their way through this tight and twisty section there.
Yeah, and these drivers obviously keeping the gaps very good. We've got a bit of a train forming at the back of the GTP field, from 9 through to 12. So we've got John Hill, Marco Kika, John Hoffman and Fabian Youngblood all running there together. They're very close to each other as well, within about 2 seconds of each other. So this could be an interesting battle to watch later on. But Tapani Lignoletto and Keith Ritchie up the front of your field, starting to get a bit closer, 8/10 by last time. And Tapani is really trying to close that gap, maybe waiting for some traffic.
Yeah, and in terms of GTO action that's currently going on out on track, there's a little battle developing between the number 19 and the number 27. This is George Gruber trying to defend his position from Michael Kirsteiner right now, as Kirsteiner did actually gain quite a couple of seconds last time by, so that must have been a mistake from Gruber that he's suffering from right now. And Kirsteiner has a very good run coming out of Thunder Valley. Coming into the final couple of corners, there's a missed apex there from Gruber that puts him under threat corner, manages to secure the position though, but he's going to have to take a very, very tight inside line for the carousel. Kirsteiner looking for that outside entry to get a good run off the corner, but doesn't get it. This Audi, Jackie, is a very, very point-and-squirt car. You have to go very, very slow into the corners, and you have to maximize that exit with the huge turbo torque that comes from that engine.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, these cars obviously four-wheel drive quite a lot of power, so if you can get the power down through the corners, you're going to be doing very well. As we just see the two leaders coming up, Linulato, a little lock up into turn number 2, into the keyhole. So, and he's lost some time there coming onto the back straight, so going to get a bit of a draft from the 19, and past he goes, which is great. So, finally Linulato just clearing those cars okay, and George Gruber caught in that position. But obviously these cars, they can be obviously squirmy on or on the entry of a corner and also the exit, but because they're four-wheel drive, you get much better traction, so you can get that power down a bit earlier.
Yeah, but you just saw the entry issues that you just described for both of these Audis just there coming onto the brakes into the China Beach section. Both of them got the back end out, just struggling with the traction on entry, but both of them managed to keep it on the grey stuff though. And let's see what Kirsteiner can do within the next couple of laps at least, see if he can do anything to pass the instant-stricken car of George Gruber, since he did lose quite a bit of time in the past couple of laps. Here comes Ovenjak, though, in the GTP car, trying to get past these guys. And also, there's going to be the car of Xavier Sanchez right there, as well as that's actually a pass for position back there in the field. That was Chad Peterson just trying to get, he actually got past Michael Kirsteiner right there. And that was pretty much out of nowhere. Chad Peterson had been catching these guys, and he's made the pass complete. This allows George Gruber just get away a little bit.
Yeah, he does. George Gruber obviously being able to extend the gap a bit while Michael Kirsteiner was defending from Chad Peterson. So Chad Peterson just trying to gain back some positions that he's lost obviously from the start of this race. We aren't very far into it though so far. Obviously the GTO is currently going on to their 14th lap of this race. The GTP is going on to their 16th. So we're starting to see people lapping more, and Keith Ritchie still at the front of your field.
Yeah, incident for the number 16 car. This is Jan Hoffman. Just the car just broke traction coming out of the final corner. Maybe it caught the curb a little bit with those left-hand side tires. Just spat the car out initially towards the pit wall, and then he overcorrected into the gravel, across into the outside wall. And I think that's going to be Jan Hoffman's day done.
Yeah, that's a bit of a shame there. He was doing quite well in that number 16 car, but there's a lot of damage on that. He's not even got a front nose, so his race is over, his day is over. That's unlucky for him, but he turned up, he did his best, and just an unfortunate incident took him out of the race. But Tapani Linulato keeping that gap to keep Ritchie at the front, keeping it steady around about 1 second in that number 1 car, with quite a big gap back to third, nearly 8 seconds. And then Ojenak in third has got about a 2-second gap over Xavier Sanchez in that number 3 car in 4th position.
Yeah, your battle for your race, your overall race lead right now is the closest battle in your GTP field. I've seen this gap fluctuate between about half a second and about 1.1 seconds over the course of the race so far, and they're currently coming up on a bit more traffic. This is Andrew Bake and Trendereed as well that they have to try and get past, and the traffic has been, apart from one instance, shall we say, has been pretty well behaved right now. Obviously, as I say, apart from that one instance where a GTO car and a GTP car got themselves in a little bit of a tangle, shall we say. In terms of GTO action, though, it's going to be a battle for P number 2 between Andrew Bake and Tangerine. Those are the same 2 drivers that your GTP race leaders had to come through on. And Tangerine has been catching Andrew Bake by about a couple of tenths of a lap at this point. 3/10 of a second was taken out of that gap last time by. And this is now a good opportunity for Tangerine to make that pass.
Yeah, it's a very good opportunity, but Tapani Linulato on that last lap closed the gap by 6/10. He was 6 seconds faster than Keith Ritchie on that last lap. Gap now down to less than half of a second. Let's see what he can do with the draft coming down the back straight. Probably not that much, because obviously this back straight isn't very long here at Mid-Ohio. So Keith Ritchie's still carrying that lead, but Tapani Linulato is starting to get some of that time back. Car may be coming back to him, so he's doing quite well. As we just look a bit further down your field between Andrew Baker and Ove Trenegard in second and third position in the GTOs. Ove Trenegard trying to obviously make up the positions that he lost earlier on. So the number 6 car really trying to get past that number 18, and he is right up on the back of him. Unfortunately, he cannot get past, and let's see how this battle develops, Kamel.
Yep, Tangerine did have a little bit of a try of it coming down into the keyhole. Managed to make it side by side, coming through there with the help of a mistake from Andrew Big. But a horrible just coming through Thunder Valley right there, and his power slide there for Tangerine. Manages to hold it though with GTP traffic incoming. This is Xavier Sanchez trying to make his way around the outside of this battle. Just slots himself in between the two Audis, just splitting up this battle a little bit. But that was a mistake from both drivers coming into the latter end of the lap there. Both the 18 and the 6 had their own problems trying to get into that left-hand kink up the hill.
Yeah, certainly. That's just those two holding their positions at the moment, just trying to deal with the traffic. Very sensible. Obviously, these drivers who are racing here today, they are very experienced either in other multi-class series like the IMSA Sports Car series like Neo, or in the Camel GT series itself. A lot of regulars that we're seeing today often racing the Camel GT series. And so these guys are going to know how to deal with the cars, know how to deal with the traffic. So Ove Trenegard looks like he's lost a little bit of time there to Andrew Bakay, but maybe going to get it back coming through the tighter, twistier sections of 4, 5 and 6, where the car may slowly come back to him.
Yeah, this is a close battle between P number 8 and actually P number 7 and P number 8. This is McLeod versus Toscan as they head their way down onto the brakes, coming down into China Beach. There was a very, very late braking move from McLeod there, trying to get himself down the inside of the GTO car in front of them. They have one more to try and get past before they get into a decent bit of clear air. And you see Sezgan just all over the back of the car ahead of him. There's a little bit of, a situation there between McLeod and Barracloud, just a little bit of leaning on each other to try and get that GTP car through, but end in no contact, even though it was very, very close. Meanwhile, it is side-by-side action just briefly between the number 9 and number 21. This is Kika and John Hill as they make their way down the inside of a GTO car. So there's been an absolute ton of traffic so far this race, and that's going to be very, very close to being contact between John Hill and Chad Pearson coming towards the final corner, but they both managed to get away with it, and your drivers have been very, very lucky so far this race.
Yeah, they have. I mean, we've had a few close calls. We obviously had that one incident that saw Philip Lake taken out of this race, which was unfortunate for him, but everyone else seems to be behaving very well in traffic, as we just see Ove Trenegard still on the back of Andrew Bakay. He's not going to let him go. These two are like on a bungee cord. You cannot separate them as he gets very close into the back, coming through turn 5 and down into turn 6 in the S's.
Yeah, and Andrew taking the much better apex there, and Big just having a little bit of an issue on exit right there, but they both managed to get the same speed off the corners. A little bit of a four-wheel drift there coming from Tangerine coming up through Thunder Valley. He's going to lose a bit of time as a result, and it just seems like he's there or thereabouts. He hasn't really been there to make an opportunity of it coming down into any braking zones, really, and he has to get the run either out this final corner now or out of the keyhole to try and make a move coming down onto China Beach. He looks at the run coming out of the final corner, not going to get it though, and Bakay actually just pulls away coming down the pit straight a little bit, and a little bit of an altercation coming onto the brakes there, but they both managed to avoid each other, and this is going to be a very, very spicy battle for P number 2 in your GTO field. Having a look elsewhere though, Pedro Ferreira has had a huge issue. There's a some major damage to the left-hand side of that Nissan. What has happened here is actually contact with a GTO car. This was coming out of the China Beach section, in fact, and that was some side-on-side contact and a little bit of miscommunication, you have to say, between two different classes there.
Yeah, and unfortunate for Chad, he just looks like he turned in on the number 23. That number 23 is going to have suspension damage, there's no doubt about that, and I wouldn't be surprised when the number 26 does as well. So unfortunate for those two, unfortunate way to go out of the race, but it's just one of the hazards of multi-class racing is you have to deal with traffic, you have to deal with slower cars, and unfortunately at Mid-Ohio it is a very tight, twisty course in some places, not a lot of room to overtake. Maybe it was a bit ambitious by Pedro Ferreira to go past there, but unfortunate for him, and he's out of this race. But Keith Ritchie continues to lead from Topano Linulato. These two are definitely not separating for each other. Gap is still within 1 second of each other as they crossed the line last time.
Yeah, both your race leaders very, very close indeed. As we have a look back towards the GTO field right now. This is the battle in the mid-pack of that particular field. This is Denis Savretic, Andy Perez, and David Baracco. David Baracco actually lost those two positions relatively recently on that last lap. I'm just going to have a little bit of a look back to see where this may have happened. Actually, this is coming through what is going to be just coming into Thunder Valley. He actually pushed it a little bit wide, went onto the grass, and as a result, lost 2 positions. Yeah,
unfortunate for him, and that's an unfortunate way to lose a couple of positions, but maybe it's worth looking at people who've done really well since the start of this race. Our highest climbers so far are Andrew Pierce sitting in P5 in that number 10 car, and George Gruber as well in that number 19 car. Obviously, Gruber started last place in your GTO field, so he's moved up 6 positions, probably most of them as a result of people just having unfortunate luck here today, so that's a bit unfortunate. But Booth is still leading your GTO field by 15 seconds. That's about nearly half a second, or over half a second a lap he's gaining on Andrew Bakay in second. But Andrew Bakay and Ove Trenegard still going neck and tail. Trenegard's still trying to get back. These two are not separating from each other. And the battle for 4th, 5th and 6th well. So Denis Savratek, Andy Pearce and David Baraclow as well. These guys have been involved in a brilliant battle for the last few. Oh, as we nearly see some contact from the number 7 and the number 25 coming through the chute, which very close. They did very well not to cause an accident there. Number 25 flashing his lights like mad to try and warn David Baraclow that he's there, but unfortunately just David didn't get the message in time. But luckily they avoided an incident there, and he gets past safely coming into turn 1.
Yeah, that was almost another incident between 2 different classes. There's a battle between, actually this was Oliver Jack actually having contact, and again it's going to be between 2 different classes, and George Gruber just parked his car on the inside line coming up to the King. I don't think the GTP car had the right to go for that position right there. I don't know what your judgment on it is, Jack.
No, I'd definitely say the number 8 was coming from too far back. There's certain unwritten rules about endurance racing and multi-class racing, is that if you're coming from a long way back, just wait. Obviously, I believe the best place for prototype drivers get past is to go up on the inside on the end. But if we see that our GT leader Boofer, his engine has gone, which promotes Andrew Bakay into the lead. So an engine failure for your leader in the GTE class. That's him out of this race. Unfortunate way for him to go, but that's just shows these cars can be hard, as I've just been corrected. Apparently I was saying GTE or GTO, not, oh dear, too long. Right, yeah, your GTO leader has gone, so I apologise for that small mistake, but Andrew Bakay has been promoted to the lead of your GTO race.
Yep, you're about 30 years a little bit too late, shall we say.
Yeah, I think my time machine has malfunctioned a bit there. Just looking a bit forward to current IMSA series and not the old one.
Or indeed the old one, as the new one is the one you were referencing when you got it wrong.
Yeah.
Anyway, back to the race. Now we're actually having a close battle. What is going to be the GTO race lead right now between Andrew Bake and Ove Trenegard as well. And this is going to be one that's going to be as fantastic as the battle that's going on for your GTP race lead right now as well. As last time by, Tepani Lignoletto actually dropped that gap down to within 0.3 of a second, but looking visually right now, that gap has already extended actually up on the relative timings to around about 1.8 seconds, so there must have been a little bit of a mistake, maybe a little bit of trouble with traffic for Tepani Lignoletto to put himself that far behind. Actually, this was coming through turn number 1. He just pushed it a little bit wide, just lost a little bit of speed on exit, and that is, as a result, that has put him behind now 2.5 seconds as it stands. So Tepani Lignoletto is absolutely losing time here. Does he have any damage to that car? I don't see that. It's just that he's had a horrible lap, and that gap has gone from just under 0.3 of a second to 2.6 seconds, just like that.
Yeah, so we see Ove Trenegard looking around the outside coming into turn 2 for the lead of your GTO race. He's not going to get it done because you've got the number 20 GTP car just sniffing his nose up the inside and taking that, just lapping him and getting him out of the way. So Ove Trenegard and Andrew Bakay still going at it, and Ove Trenegard now he can see that lead. He's really going to go for it. So we almost had some contact between Bakay and the number 20 car of Gary Teal, which very close coming into the braking zone for China Beach.
Yep, very, very close indeed as this battle for the GTO race lead rages on. We have to keep in mind, though, that there will be a pit stop, one scheduled pit stop for each of your classes during the course of this race, and that is not something that Kamel GT drivers are used to as far as my understanding goes, so that could be very, very interesting coming towards that point. From my understanding, it looks like the GTP drivers will try to go as far as they can on their fuel tank, so that'll be around about 40 laps, and the GTO drivers will not pit quite halfway, but a significant amount into the race before the GTP drivers do, though. Now that is a very early stop.
Yeah, that is. We're only about we're not even halfway into this race, and he's already on pit road, so be interesting to see why he's done that. I don't think he's got any damage. I wonder whether he's just gone for two slightly lower fuel stints than having a higher fuel and a lower fuel like most people, I think, will. So it'd be interesting to see how that strategy plays out. Obviously, strategy is something which is definitely going to play into this race. Obviously, the Kamel GT series are usually half-an-hour races, so they're not used to the longer races as he just exits the pit after what looks like a 15.9 second stop, Connery.
Yeah, that looks to be the case right there, as he is now off and away with fuel towards the end of this race, you would have thought. So that is a very, very early start for Tepani Liniueto. I think he has enough of a gap over, at least when he came into the pits, over Xavier Sanchez to try and make that call, try and do something different to get ahead of Keith Ritchie, because they have been, apart from the in-laps that Tepani Liniueto did, they have been relatively similar on pace, so this could be a strategy call from Tepani Liniueto, getting that stop done early to try and make something of it coming towards the end of the race. And just having a little bit of a look at a battle between, this is going to be for P number 9 and P number 10 in your GTP field. This is Marco Kika and John Hill. They are relatively close on track. Around about a second separates those guys, as I'm having now it's going to be the GTO race lead. This is the one that's also very, very close. That could be separated by the pit stops that'll be coming up to in around about 10 laps time, I should say. I won't put any money on it, though, as there's actually Xavier Sanchez down the inside and well negotiated in terms of the traffic there, as this race has gone into a little bit of a lull, but it's a very, very close battle now between P number 5, P number 6, and a very good run for Liniueto coming out of the corner. That's probably what's going to be fresher tyres giving him the advantage, as now he has to negotiate another GTO car. Yeah,
it's just traffic playing into the game like usual with these longer races. So Keith Ritchie at the moment, he is in some nice clean air, so I wouldn't expect him. I would be expecting him to put in some solid consistent laps. Obviously Liniueto is going to be in traffic, so he's going to be putting down varied laps, as we just see a few more GTP cars coming onto the pit lane. Maybe we're seeing that the GTP cars are starting to run out of fuel. They're already running their tanks dry, and they can run, prototypes usually run slightly shorter stints than our GT cars.
Now that's very strange indeed, because I actually had a look at the previous race sessions for the races here at Mid-Ohio this week, and it looked like, at least initially, that the prototype drivers went at least 40 laps on the tank before coming in and fueling the rest of the way to the end. So that is a very, very interesting call for your GTP cars that have come in at this stage. That was John Keefe is the other one that was down on pit road. The rest of your prototype drivers are still out there and circulating, however. And well, the main battle that we're looking at right now, the GTP field is kind of quiet. No cars are really all that close together, but that is definitely not the case for the GTO field. That the battle is still raging on. There's also a battle going on between Denis Savratic and what is going to be the car of David Barraclough as well. That battle was going to be separated just a little bit by a GTP car that was coming through, but Savratic actually got a very, very good run coming out of the first corner when David Barraclough had to let that GTP car through, and now Savratic is back within a second.
Yeah, that's very lucky for these guys. Traffic obviously again playing into this quite well. So Denis Savratic obviously probably wants to get past the David Barraclough for fourth position there. He's currently sitting in sixth, David Barraclough in fourth. Those two are around 25 seconds behind the lead of Andrew Baker and Over Trenegard, which that battle is still raging, still going, and I think it's going to go right down to the wire, Connery.
Yeah, I think it is as well. And, well, we still got the issue of pit stops to consider for the vast majority of your field right now. A couple of drivers in for early stops. Another GTP driver in for an early stop. In fact, there's Kovisto down onto pit road, and he doesn't have any damage, so that looks like a scheduled stop for the number 25 machine. It's actually a very long while stationary in the pit stall for the number 25 machine, around about 30 seconds compared to the 16 and 18 odd seconds for the other GTP cars coming in. So that was a very long stop for the number 25 machine as he heads himself back out on track behind traffic though, and that's not what he would have wanted.
I think the 25 car probably had a bit of damage on there. So also another thing is IMSA, obviously we saw IMSA last week on Friday prime time. Those cars have speed limiters. These cars don't. So it's going to be very interesting to see if we get any pit lane speeding penalties. Obviously we know the NASCAR series doesn't have speed limiters, so we're going to see if we're going to get many penalties as we see Gary Teal just pitting. But GTO lead once again is really going for it. Over trying to go right on the bumper of Andrew Bakay. He looks like he's been trying to make a couple of moves over the last sort of few corners. I've been watching this battle very closely for the last few laps as he maybe wants to go around the outside. No, just going to save it, try and see if he can do a lunge into turn 1.
Yeah, that's definitely going to have to be the play that Chandra makes right now. There's a decent run coming out of the final corner, but it seems like Vicky has an even better run coming out of the slow speed corners as Vic makes almost a four-wheel drift coming through turn number 1. This will give the opportunity to Chandra coming around the outside, maybe coming down into the keyhole. He has a think about it. He's going to place his car there, going very, very deep on the brakes. Maybe a switchback move coming off of the corner here as back end goes out again for the number 6 car. Tries to get the drive off the corner, still not getting though. Andrew Baker has been absolutely phenomenal at getting that car off the corner.
He has. He's been doing brilliantly, and it's just every move that Over Trenegard seems to try and put towards him, Andrew just seems to be able to do it. He'll just counter it back as we see the number 14 GTP just going to break this up for a few corners there. Trenegard really losing some time behind that car. The gap already out to 1.5 seconds.
Yeah, and Trenegard didn't really want that traffic to happen as Clayton McLeod was the GTP car that was trying to come through on him, and now McLeod is trying to go through on Andrew Big, but Andrew Big's not really having any of it. Meanwhile, Rob Ozenjak is actually down on pit road. Yet another GTP car down on towards pit road right there. And, well, it seems around about a third of your GTP drivers have come in at this stage in the race. Your race leaders are staying out right now with the exception of Tapani Liniletu, who pitted from that second place. In terms of close battles, though, it's going to be this is pretty much the only one going on out there at this moment in time. With so many cars coming in, at least GTP cars coming in for their pit stops, that is just spread things out just a little bit as Ozenjak gets himself off of pit road.
Yeah, it's just this GTO lead battle has been going on since this battle between Bakay and Over Trenegard has been going on for ages. Obviously, it hasn't been the lead battle for all the time these guys have been battling, but more recently since the obvious loss of Buffa, who was originally leading this class by 15 seconds. Did a storming job in the open part of this race, only to lose his engine. As Trenegard just losing it a bit, coming through turn number 4, coming through the China Beach section, as we just see the number 22 GTP of Tazan just making his way around these cars. So Trenegard is maybe starting to lose his tyres a bit, Connery, and I think maybe we'll see a tyre change for him when he pits in a few laps' time.
Yeah, that could definitely be the case as Tezcan just squeaks his way through on your GTO race leader right now. And the other battle, that's actually a battle going on, well, two cars relatively close on track together in your GTP field. The two cars one lap down. This is Gary Teal and Hideki Kobisoto as Kobisoto just tries to catch up to the back of Gary Teal. Gary Teal had a terrible lap last time by. As we have a look towards the number 9 and number 21, in fact, this is going to be Marco Kika versus John Hill, as John Hill gets held up by the GTO traffic right there of Andy Perez, and he's going to get held up again coming out of the final two corners. Look at how much time he's losing behind that Audi, and he's going to finally make his way by, but John Hill is definitely not going to be happy with that.
No, he's not. He's lost a lot of time there to Kika, and he's definitely not going to be impressed by that GTO driver. Or GTO driver. I'm going to get the class right this time. So, John Hill there sitting in 10th place in that number 21 car, as Keith Ritchie continues to lead this race by 14 seconds, but Tapani Linileto 29 seconds behind. Now, we know he spent 33 seconds on pit lane, but Keith Ritchie's going to have a much shorter stop because he's going to have less fuel to put in the car. So, maybe Tapani Linuleto's strategy of pitting earlier may not pay off because he had a longer stop. He will need more fuel to get to the end of this race, Connery.
Yeah, and that well, that will definitely be something that we'll be watching coming towards the end of this race to see how that one turns out. The battle between Tapani Lindoletto and Keith Ritchie is definitely one that we'll be paying attention to. As we have a look back towards GTO race lead, they are close yet again, heading down onto the brakes, coming down into turn 1, but yet more GTP cars trying to spoil this battle a little bit. This is Obenjak actually trying to go around these guys. He's already made his scheduled pit stop in that GTP car as he gets the move done coming into the keyhole. But Trenigard is still trying. He's trying to find the gap, trying to find any opportunity as actually a big just launches that Audi. It's like a rocket ship coming off the line, and there's nothing Trenigard can do.
No, there's nothing he can do because Baker is getting some brilliant traction off of these corners. Trenigard just cannot match him, which is interesting to see. Obviously, Trenigard is a much higher rated driver than Andrew Baker, a 1,100 I rating more than he has, but Baker I think probably just has a little bit more experience in these cars, but these guys are back up to close together. The gap goes out, the gap comes in. It's like watching a bungee jumper. It's just out and in. It's a brilliant battle to watch here as the number 6 and the number 18 battle on for this lead with 22 laps to go.
We are well into the second half of this race right now. 35 on the 35th lap for your GTP drivers out of 56. And this GTO battle is still going to rage on. Trenigard getting right up to the bumper of Andrew Bake, but still not able to make a move as we see that characteristic good launch off of the corner for Andrew Bake. There's some GTP cars. That's actually your GTP leader trying to get through on these guys right now. And it's also going to be Gary Teal, who is actually 2 laps down on your prototype leader, just trying to come through as well. It's just going to put a break to this battle at the front of your GTO field. There's another prototype car tries to find his way around. There's 2 cars leaning on each other. That is Andrew Bake and Gary Teal. And there's almost further contact coming off the corner. And that could have been an opportunity for the number 6 driver of Trenigard to try and get past, but he had his own issues with the prototype traffic as well.
Yeah, he just couldn't use all the track he needed to get the needed traction out of that corner. So Andrew Baker might get a little bit held up by that 25 car. Got to take a bit of a longer line around turn 5. And over Trenigard is straight back there, straight back on his bumper, trying to look for that tiny little minuscule gap that he needs to be able to stick his nose at the inside, say hello and try and get past.
Yeah, exactly. He's getting close enough, but there's no gap appearing for him to try and make his way down the inside as Kiko gets a little bit held up by Trenigard right there, coming into the latter part of the lap here, and that's again going to split this battle up, and it's going to extend the gap yet again. But I think if the past is to repeat here, that gap will just close up yet again once these 2 prototype drivers try and get past your GTO race lead. Other cars coming down onto pit road. Xavier Sanchez is actually down on towards pit road right now. He's coming in for his scheduled stop. There was another car also down on pit road. That was Clayton McLeod. He is back out on track, and this is more the area that we expected the prototype cars to come in for the scheduled pit stops. So expect other drivers to come down and join Xavier Sanchez shortly.
Yeah, we've had a little bit of information as to why we lost Buffer, who was originally leading this GTO class. Apparently he missed a shift which blew his engine in the Audi, so it just shows how sensitive the Audi is to shifting, and how if you just miss one and over rev it slightly, that could be the end of your day. But over Trenigard has dropped back to over a second, although Andrew Baker has just had a big issue with the number 14 of Clayton McLeod, who's just been in the pits, and Trenigard is straight back there, straight on his tail. So these guys definitely not leaving each other alone. We've got 19 laps of this race left for the GTP leaders, probably going to be about 16, 17 for the GTO cars, so I think this is going to go to the wire. I can't put any money on who's going to win this because Andrew Baker is looking strong, but so is Ove Trenigard.
Yep, and another little bit of trouble with the prototype cars right there as Bas Slob made his way through. So this battle has closed up yet again for your GTO race lead as they missed the pit lane this time by. So then at least going to go one more lap right here as Trenigard is as close as he ever has been, but he's still not able to make that move anywhere on the circuit right now. A decent run coming through the middle of turn number 1, but when it comes to the exit of the corner, Baker just gets the traction down out of nowhere as defensive inside line, in fact, with Baker, as he actually heads his way into the keyhole. Trenegard trying to take that wider entry to get good run off, but again, he's being absolutely annihilated on the exit of the corners. He's relatively close right now. This is the closest he ever has been coming down into the China Beach section. Will we see a hopeful lunge coming down the inside? And the answer to that question is no.
Yeah, very sensible choice there from Ove Trenegard. He's maybe just trying to avoid an incident that could take both of them out of this race. Obviously, neither of them want that. So these two, very clean racing so far. There's been almost no contact, if any, between these two drivers. Yet they're still managing to give us one of the most exciting battles out on the track.
Your GTP race leader on towards pit road, and now this will be interesting to see where Keith Ritchie comes out in relation to Tepani Lignoletto. And well, we'll just have to see as actually your GTO race lead. This is actually side by side coming down in through the carousel at the latter end of the lap. Side by side for the race leader's base as Andrew Big just defends that race lead for now. Now we turn our attention back to your GTP race lead. Keith Ritchie still down on pit road. His stop has already been longer than Tepani Lignoletto, and Tepani Lignoletto is now past. He is heading his way down into the keyhole, and this will be very, very interesting. Keith Ritchie will have fresher tires for the rest of this race, but he's 12.7 seconds behind Tepani Lignoletto, and he has to make up 12.7 seconds in the next 17 laps.
Yeah, we're going to look back to this GTO race lead because these guys have not left each other's bumpers for the last 2 laps. Ove Trenegard looking up the inside of Andrew Bakay. I think he might get the move done here coming down to China Beach. Ove Trenegard takes the lead. Andrew Bakay is not going to challenge it. So Ove Trenegard to the lead as he gets sideways coming through turn 5. Andrew Bakay just avoids a collision, but Ove Trenegard going to keep that lead. So Ove Trenegard, your new leader in the GTE class.
Yeah, exactly, and that was a very scary moment for both drivers coming through the China Beach section. Trenegard getting that little bit of slide on coming through there, and let's see what Andrew Bake can do. Maybe he decides to dive it down pit road this time by to maybe get a jump on Trenegard in the pits. We'll have to see what he does as they come up towards the pit road entry now. There's a prototype driver just trying to come through, and these guys, both of them miss pit road this time by, and behind them is going to be Fabian Youngblood and Keith Ritchie, which is your GTP race leader that had pitted. And your current race leader in your GTP field is Bas Slob at this moment in time, as Baker gets a huge issue with the prototype drivers coming down on his inside, and now that gap is extended to over a second yet again as a swarm of GTP cars now try to overtake Trenegard.
Yeah, that's just unfortunate timing there for these two, broken that battle up again. And I must apologise, I keep getting GT and GTO mixed up. I've been racing far too much GTE recently, so that's just stuck in my mind. And if I say GTE, I mean GTO. And these GTO cars are brilliant to watch. And my mind, it's been a long week for me. But no, getting back to the race, and Ove Trenegard continues to lead the GTO class, and Bas Slob is leading your GTP class by around, I think it's 8 seconds over Tepani Lignoletto. But Bas Slob is yet to pit. We're yet to see him onto pit road for his stop.
Yeah, very close battle between the number 12 and the number 24. This is Fabian Youngblood and John Keefe as well, and they were relatively close, but then traffic came into play and split up that battle just a little bit. As having a look at the rest of your GTP field, close battles involve Marco Kicker and Clayton McLeod and John Hill and Ian Tazcan, and also Fabian Youngblood and John Keefe. Those are the battles going on in your GTP field right now. In terms of your GTO field, well, the only one of note is going to be between your two cars at the front of the field, Trenegard and Andrew Bake. And Andrew Bake has just dropped off the back of Trenegard at the moment. And again, he was the, what I would say is the faster car at the early stage of the stint. But it looks like those tires have just come away from him a little bit. Maybe he needs to dip down pit road early to try and get fresher rubber for the end.
Yeah, maybe, and obviously the rubber, they've already done 41 laps, we're over halfway, so I reckon these tyres would have done about 150 kilometres so far, as we see Bas Slob coming onto pit lane to complete his stop. Tepani Lignoletto is going to inherit the lead, and his strategy has definitely paid off.
that was actually an incident coming onto pit road for Baslob with a GTO car that was coming out of his pit stall, I believe. Actually, that was a GTO car reversing down pit road. That is a very, very strange incident indeed. Severetic just missed his pit box by a country mile, reversed all the way down pit road, and went straight into the front of Baslob. What a strange incident.
What? Wow, that number 5 car. I don't really see how you can miss your pit slot by so far. That's very odd. Baslob there picking up a lot of damage. He's still stationary, and along with the number 5 car, Baslob having a very, very extended stop. Same with Dennis Saravetic, I think his name is. So that's unfortunate for Baslob, who was doing very well in this race, but Topani Lignoletto, after all that time sitting in second behind Keith Ritchie, his strategy has paid off and he is now leading this race.
Yep, and that gap is in fact up to around about 15, just almost getting towards 16 seconds on the relative timings between P number 1 and P number 2 in your GTP field right now. And that was actually bigger than the 12-second gap that we saw coming off of pit road. So Topani Lignoletto has actually done a very, very good job so far at maintaining and even extending that gap. But last time by, Keith Ritchie did take about 0.5 of a second out of him. How much does he take out this time by? It's another almost a second. So Keith Ritchie has now replied to that gap extending that Topani Lignoletto was doing.
Yeah, and obviously we're now seeing Baslob. He's out of this race, unfortunately. But Lignoletto, he is keeping the gap around. He's actually extending the gap a bit. Oh no, sorry, Keith Ritchie was about a second faster on that last lap, so Keith Ritchie maybe got a bit more pace. Let's just see if he can get that gap back, but we only have 13 laps left of this race, and Keith Ritchie has got to go a lot faster than Topani Lignoletto. We know he can be quicker because we saw that at the start of the race, but he's got to replicate that on the end of the race in traffic, and that is going to be very difficult, and he's obviously got to catch him and then get past him. And here at Mid-Ohio, getting past, as we saw with Andrew Bakay and Ove Trenegard, as we see Bakay onto pit lane now to complete his stop. Passing here is very hard.
Yeah, exactly. And since we're coming up to around about 13 laps to go, that means that even with the second lap that Keith Ritchie is catching Topani Lignoletto, the gap stands around 14 seconds right now, so he'll still be a second shy coming towards the checkered flag. So Keith Ritchie absolutely has to turn the afterburners on this end right now to have any chance of being in contention coming towards the end of this race. And actually he does reply actually a 1:13.0. That is getting very close to the fastest lap of the day, and that has taken 1.4 seconds out of Topani Lignoletto. That's more like it for Keith Ritchie if he wants a chance at the race win.
Yeah, that definitely is. And Topani Lignoletto, I don't think took tyres. I think that's why we're starting to see slightly slower lap times from him, is because he is on the same set of tyres that he started this race on. Keith Ritchie, because he had a longer pit stop, must have taken tyres, so his lap times are going to be much more rapid. He's gone for the gamble, and the fact that he was 1.4 seconds quicker on that last lap, I think the gamble may pay off for him.
Yeah, but he has to consistently take 1.4 seconds out of Topani Lignoletto for the next, 10, 11, 12 laps towards the end of this race. And that is quite a demanding thing to do, even for drivers as skilled as Keith Ritchie et al. As we look towards the number 9 and the number 14 machine. This is Kika versus Clayton McLeod. And Kika's just trying to defend the position from McLeod, but deep on the brakes, around the outside, around the keyhole goes Clayton McLeod, and actually he's gonna get the pass complete, or is he? No, that's gonna be a terrible run coming out of the keyhole. Gives the advantage to Marco Kika to try and defend his position, and in fact he does. And now does he try a move coming down into China Beach as well? A deep on the brakes coming around the outside. He does very, very deep on the brakes indeed, but manages to keep it on the grey stuff, and that is going to be the position gained for the number 14.
That is a very good move there from Clayton McLeod. It was a very good job going around the outside coming into China Beach, and full kudos to him for those two for not hitting each other. Kiko just losing another place down to 7th place. I think he'll be annoyed, but with this close to the end of the race, I think it's just he might be pushing his luck if he tries to attack Clayton McLeod and just try to get some of that time back in that position as well.
Meanwhile, at the top of your GTP field, Keith Ritchie has taken a whole bunch of time out of Tepani Liningolato, almost 2 seconds that time by. The gap was reduced between your P1 and P number 2 in your GTP field, as actually Tepani Liningolato sets a decent lap time by a 1:13.8, as Keith Ritchie does have a little bit of trouble with the GTO traffic right now. That's going to compromise his lap time a little bit, and that's actually going to be only 1:10. Actually, that's going to be almost 2 seconds slower than Tepani Liningolato last time by, so they're trading lap times on the order of seconds right now, and that is very, very interesting indeed. Keith Ritchie really didn't need that traffic. As we look at the 21 and the 22, this is John Hill and Tezgan heading their way side by side, coming down into the China Beach section, but John Hill manages to defend his position, at least for now.
Yeah, he's holding off a good fight here from Tezcan, so Tezcan obviously probably wants that position, he wants to get past, but John Hill putting up a big fight to stop that, doing very well at the moment. Everywhere else, we're going to see John Hill and Tezcan are the battle we're looking at the moment. Going back a bit further, Fabian Jungbluth and John Keefe, I think these guys are pretty close together on circuit. Yeah, they are. They're currently split by Andrew Baker in that number 18 car. Obviously, he has completed his stop now for the GTO class. The only 2 drivers not to have stopped in the GTO class are your leader Ove Trenegard and second place Andy Pearce. Everyone else has stopped, so expect to see them onto pit lane in just a few laps time.
Yeah, exactly. There's only so much further they can go before the fuel runs dry in those Audis. They definitely don't have enough fuel to manage to go to the end, so it's only a matter of time before those guys head their way down towards pit road. But it's been pretty impressive that they've gone, at least for the GTO cars, they've gone 42 laps on that fuel tank right now, but that's not going to last very many more laps at this rate, since they can't make it to the end on the fuel tank. And when Ove Trenegard does come down towards pit road, it'd be interesting to see where he comes out in relation to the likes of Andrew Bake, because they were very close. They had that early race battle just before the pit stops, and then Andrew Bake decided to come down a little bit earlier than Ove Trenegard, as Trenegard hasn't actually made his stop yet, as he gets another slide coming through the last couple of corners with some traffic coming up on him. A gaggle of GTP cars trying to get by, as actually those GTP cars, Marco Kicker and the car of John Hill, heading their way down towards pit road. And actually, we're going to go on board on the Audi 90 GTO of Ove Trenegard. This is going to be your RaceSpotTV fan immersion. Trenegard heading his way down on towards pit road, and that is going to be your GTO leader in towards the pits right now. Does Andy Pearce head his way down pit road? He's coming up towards the pit entry right now. This is your P number 2 driver. Actually, he's going to stay out at least one more lap. Where is Andrew Bake? He's coming through the final couple of corners right now, but Trenegard is off and away well before then. So Trenegard is going to be still your race leader, ahead of Andy Pearce, in fact, even though Andy Pearce has not pitted just yet. Actually, he did not stop. Actually, I'm just getting a few reports that he did not actually stop. Was that a stop and go penalty for Trenegard, I wonder? Actually, he didn't even stop, I don't think. He just missed his big box completely. Let's see if we can get a replay of that one, in fact. But we've seen a weird incident already on pit road, and we've just seen another one.
Yeah, that's odd. I mean, he's expected to come into the pits. Yeah, he just drove straight through, which makes me think maybe he had a drive-through penalty. But I can't see what he's done to deserve the drive-through penalty, unless he had a slowdown and didn't take the slowdown, which could have been a good way of just getting through that drive-through. So I'd expect to see him onto pit lane this time to complete his stop, to get enough fuel to complete the last 7 laps to the end of this race.
Yeah, it looks like, I'm looking at the last couple of corners before he made his pen-entry. It doesn't look like he cut any corners right there, so it can't really have been a slowdown penalty coming on towards pit road. And it looks like he is consistently at the pit road speed limit. As actually, I'm just going to double check this one. Pit road speed limit is 72 kilometers an hour, and he is well below that for the majority of the pit lane. So no penalties, no, and actually he is down on pit road now, but that is a very, very weird incident. Perhaps if he comes in for an interview later on, we might get an answer to that one.
Yeah, maybe. That was a very odd incident for Drenegreed. So he's back down off, new tyres, new set of boots for the last 7 laps of this race, and he is moving again. But Andrew Bakay inherits that race lead, and Andrew Pearce also onto pit lane there. So and Andrew Pearce has also missed his stop. So these Camel GT drivers obviously not used to stopping in races, so it's just been tripping up today. And I think that's definitely one of the highlights of the race, is the fact that inexperience in the pit lane is definitely leading to position loss on the track.
Yeah, that's very, very weird indeed, but I think you're right. Since these drivers in the Camel GT series aren't used to pitting, most of their races during the season are just 30-minute sprint races towards the end without any pit stops, and of course with the lack of the pit limiter here, that can cause shenanigans coming down on towards pit road. So as you say, a little bit of inexperience perhaps settling in as Andy Pearce is down on towards pit road as well. That's going to be one of your last GTO drivers to hit his way down pit road, but actually it is going to be the last GTO driver coming down towards pit road, so it's going to be the last driver in the entirety of the race that is going to be down on towards pit road. So all of your cars that are currently out on track probably have enough fuel to the end right now, as the gap at the front, this is going to be Tapani Liniolette and Keith Ritchie. That is around about 10 seconds, and you just sense that this race is now slipping away from Keith Ritchie as he's having a little bit of trouble with traffic, and he's coming up on some same class traffic here as well in the form of the number 22 machine. And I think as the time goes on here, as the laps click away, it's looking more and more like Tapani Liniolette will come away with this race win with 5 laps to go and 10 seconds the gap.
Yeah, and he's done very well this race. He's been able to hold off Keith Ritchie just by using strategy. He got that in the pits. He didn't get that out on circuit. So that's a very good job by Tapani Liniolette there. Obviously, he is a pro driver. He's the only one in the field. So that's kind of expected from him. But he's definitely back. Ove Trenegard has driven a great race to run second. And Andrew Bakay in first. As we just get reports that the number 7 David Barraclout has had a few issues. Not sure where that was, but it's coming through turn 1. The number 25 clearly didn't see him, just turned straight into him, and both of those two have gone for a little exploration of the grass in between the straights leading around turn 2.
Yep, and that is another little bit of contact, well, large amount of contact, shall we say, between two different classes yet again here. And that was Kobe Soto and David Barraclout taking themselves for a spin across the grass, and as you say, and almost onto the back straight right there. And that is an incident that can happen. Any incident that happens on the straight between turn 1 and turn number 2, if it carries enough momentum across that grass, it could involve drivers on the other side of the circuit coming down the back straight. So luckily that did not happen. They stopped well short of the mark right there, but it's definitely something that you do not want to see, as the battles have spread out on track right now. Nothing really to comment on, but the early parts of this race were certainly interesting with the amount of traffic that was going on for those GTP cars.
Yeah, the traffic usually does in endurance races just spread out by the end of the race. Obviously, we've come almost there. We've got 3.5 more laps to go, 200 kilometers this race, and we have seen some great racing today, Connery. Traffic has definitely played its part. We've seen a few incidents because of traffic, obviously the one there, the latest one, and That could have been very interesting had that got onto the back straight. We could have had quite a large pile up, and we could have seen some of the big runners in this race out with just 3 laps to go, and that would have put another twist to this race.
Yeah, exactly. A race with many twists, with incidents between 2 different classes. We've had incidents involving 2 cars and involving just 1 car on pit road when they missed their pit stalls. But one driver that certainly hasn't done that is Tepani Lineolato. He's still keeping that gap around about, it's going to be around about 9.3 seconds last time by. So that gap has come down a little bit, but not as much as Keith Ritchie would have wanted. And that early stop really has paid off for Tepani Lineolato. One of the, the only pro licensed driver in this field, definitely showing what he is made of. With about 2.5 laps to go, he is set to win this race for the GTP field. In terms of your GTO field, it's going to be Andrew Bake, who is currently a good couple of seconds, around about 5 seconds. Actually, that's much more than 5 seconds. That is around about 10 plus seconds ahead of Trenegard right there. So he has a very, very comfortable gap to perhaps take this race win in the GTO field, pending any further issues. But that is pretty much it in terms of the rest of your field and their battles. The closest 2 cars on track right now that's going to be battling for position are the cars of John Keefe and Fabian Youngblood. But again, that gap is still on the edge of being close, around about 1 second. As Tepani Lineolato again sets a very, very good lap time in 1:13.4. And Keith Ritchie 1/10 faster, but 1/10 with 2 laps to go. It's just not going to happen without any extraneous circumstances.
No, Tepani Lineolato needs 2 awful laps for Keith Ritchie to be able to catch up, which at this stage of the race and looking at the cars that are ahead of him, he's not going to get that. I think Tepani Lineolato might be clear to the finish now, so I think if he, at the most, he's going to get 1 more car to lap. So he's just got to go mistake-free for the last 1.3 laps of this race, and Tepani Lineolato, he's going to bring that number 1 GTP down onto victory lane. Obviously, number 1 showing that he is the highest I-rating driver in the race, and he's definitely showing why he deserves that number 1 car too.
Oh yeah, definitely. As he heads his way through the final couple of corners on the penultimate lap, and the white flag will be in the air next time by. Actually, it's going to be, yes, it's going to be next time by. 1 lap remaining for Tepani Lineolato to take the race win in your GTP field. It'll also be 1 lap to go once Andrew Bake manages to get his way across the line. He's currently dealing with his own class traffic and some GTP traffic trying to come through on him, but that looks to not be an issue for the number 18 driver right now. Again, the closest battle on the circuit right now is still that one between Fabian Youngblood and John Keefe. But again, unless John Keefe puts in an amazing final lap here, it's not likely that he'll be in a position to challenge Fabian Youngblood for that 8th place in class coming towards the end of this race, as those cars take the white flag this time. As we have a look back towards Tepani Lineolato, and it has been pretty much a hassle-free race, as actually we have a little bit of a look back towards John Keefe and the likes of Fabian Youngblood, as Youngblood has actually spun it coming off of turn number 1, and that happening on the last lap. That must be heartbreak.
Yeah, that must be. That's utter heartbreak. Just 1 more lap to go. You can see the end now after so long. An hour and 12 minutes this race has currently had, as we see Tepani Lineolato come around the final 2 corners.
Yeah, Tepani Lineolato, the number 1 car, taking the number 1 position in your GTP field. It's going to be Tepani Lineolato taking the race win with a very good strategy call, pitting early. It's going to be Keith Ritchie making his way out the final corner to take 2nd place in your GTP field. And it looks like P number 3 is going to be Xavier Sanchez, getting a very good result for himself in that final spot on the podium for your GTP field. Looking back towards your GTO field, Andrew Bake, again, he was embroiled in that battle between himself and the number 6 car of Trenegard, but Trenegard fell into a little bit of a lull with issues coming towards the end of the race. And now Andrew Bake rounding his way through the carousel, through the final corner, and Andrew Bake is going to take the race win in the GTO field. Trenegard will have to settle for 2nd place, and it's going to be a David Barraclough who is going to take the final step on the podium for your GTO field.
Yeah, that was a very good race there from these guys. 56 laps. It's a longer race than these guys have ever done in this series, and it's been great to see these guys racing some brilliant racing, and let's hope we get to see some of these guys just after in the post-race show.
Yeah, exactly. As the final car to actually finish the race will be your P number 3 in your GTO field, as David Barrichello comes across the line to take the checkered flag. And it has been a great race here at Mid-Ohio in the Kamel GT series, and these are going to be your official results. Tepani Lignoletto will take the race win in your GTP field, with Keith Ritchie in second and Xavier Sanchez a very respectable third place. Then it's going to be Ocean Jack and then Imaki. Clayton McLeod will take 6th place. Yit Tezcan will take 7th. John Keefe 8th. Marco Kicker, Fabian Longbuff will be 9th and 10th respectively. John Hill 11th. Gary Teal 12th. Hideki Kobe Soto is going to be number 13th. Philip Lake 18th, Baslob 21st, was classed as 21st in this timing sheet after that incident on towards pit road with that car that was reversing down it. Then it's going to be Pedro Ferreira and then Jan Hoffman, who is going to round out the GTP field. Then it's going to be the race results for your GTO field. It's going to be Andrew Bake taking the race win in that one, with Ovid Trenegard and David Barrichello taking the final 2 steps on the podium. Then it's going to be Michael Kirsteiner in 4th, Andrew Perez 5th, and George Gruber taking that 6th place. Then down the field, it's going to be Savaretic, Chad Peterson, Buafea with the unfortunate engine blowing earlier on in this race, where he was absolutely dominant, but sometimes it just isn't your day. Then it's going to be Tomo and Michel de Jong is going to be the car that is last in the finishing results. Well, it's been an absolutely great race here at Mid-Ohio in the Kamel GT series, and we're just going to go to a commercial break right now and join us for the post-race show after this. Hello and welcome back to RaceSpotTV, streaming live on iRacing Live. It is Friday primetime and this is the post-race show. We just had a fantastic race that was interrupted a little bit by incidents that happened out on track, especially down on towards pit road. But one driver that definitely did not have an issue is your GTP winner, Tepani Lignoletto. And I actually have Tepani Lignoletto in the box with me right now. And Tepani, it was that early stop that pretty much won you the race right there.
Oh yeah, it was unscheduled, so my front tires just died right there. I dropped back a few seconds and I was like, oh, I really have to do something. And so I stopped and got the new tires and fueled the car to the end. And I was quite lucky that I had a good pace after that, so it worked out in the end.
Yep, 12 seconds was the gap, or roundabout, when you came off pit road, that you were ahead of Keith Ritchie. In the end, that was going to be reduced to 10 seconds, but it was getting very, very close. Just a couple of laps before the end, before you extended that gap again, Keith Ritchie was taking chunks and chunks of time out of you, but then he hit a couple of little bits of traffic that meant that he dropped back even further and further, and that just meant that it allowed you to secure the race win. But we had a couple of incidents with traffic out there on track today. Obviously, you didn't have too much of an issue in terms of contact with the lap traffic, but how was the lap traffic behaving for you out there today?
Oh, I think everyone was pretty nice. No trouble at all.
No trouble at all with traffic. And looking towards later rounds in the season, obviously we're not really going to broadcast the later rounds in the season unless someone can convince Hugo otherwise. But looking at later rounds, are you going to continue racing this series, or is this just a one-off?
Well, I really don't know. This was last minute decision. I got a couple of hours of practice and came here. I haven't raced this series in 2 seasons, so it was nice to come back. And it was a endurance race, so that was something new, and it was very, very fun to race.
Of course, if you do want to see more broadcasted Kamel GT series, then obviously GSRC have their broadcast on Saturdays at 1 p.m. EST if you want some more Kamel GT racing action. And just having a little bit at the post-race radio here, the likes of that car that we saw that was missed his pit box coming down pit road. I think that was Trinigard that missed his pit box coming down pit road, and apparently he was more focused on his fuel jack than actually stopping for his pit guy.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, we know these guys are inexperienced with pit stops. Obviously, we have never seen this series have pit stops before. This is the first endurance race they've done. So, Ove was just a bit inexperienced, didn't have all his fuel set up properly, was doing it coming down pit lane, and obviously his guy was a bit earlier than he thought. Had he not done that, I think he would have been good to challenge for that race win. But unfortunately he wasn't. Unfortunately that incident did happen, that lost him a bit of time. Still managed to come home a second, and a good second result there from him.
Very, very good second result indeed. And obviously your race winner in your GTO field, Andrew Bake, apparently a series regular, getting the race win to here today, and that is a very, very good accolade to add to his collection, getting a win in such a high strength of field. He must be very, very proud of that one. But that is going to be all that we have time for here today. This was RaceSpotTV broadcasting the Friday primetime Kamel GT Mid-Ohio. I've been Connery Maddock, that has been Jack Styles, and we'll see you guys next week.